You notice it first in the quiet moments. It is a subtle distortion in the architecture of the everyday, like a low-frequency hum you only hear when the power goes out. We have become accustomed to a world that feels slightly oversaturated, where the edges of reality are smoothed over by the constant flickering of glass and light. For a long time we called this progress. We called it being connected. We assumed that the more we integrated our minds with the network, the more we would expand. But lately, something has shifted. There is a growing group of people, those who operate at the very edges of human capability, who have begun to pull back. They are not retreating into the woods to vanish. They are performing a far more radical act. They are reclaiming their neural sovereignty. To understand why, you have to look at what happened to our attention while we weren't looking. We were told that we were the users of the systems we built. We believed the interface was a tool, an extension of our will. But if you watch the way people move through the world now, that relationship looks inverted. The tools are no longer passive. They have become predatory. They map the geography of our desires and the vulnerabilities of our biology with a precision that borders on the surgical. For the hyper-performer, the individual whose entire life is built on the quality of their cognitive output, this is not just an inconvenience. It is an existential threat. They have realized that in the current economy, their focus is the only thing truly worth owning, and yet it is the one thing they no longer control. The early biohackers thought the answer was optimization. They measured their sleep, their heart rate variability, their glucose levels. They looked for the perfect chemical stack to sharpen the mind and extend the hours of peak performance. It was a mechanical approach to a human problem. They treated the brain like a piece of hardware that simply needed better cooling and a more efficient fuel source. But you can optimize a machine until it runs at triple its original speed and still find that it is being used to run software that isn't yours. This was the realization that changed everything. It doesn't matter how fast your mind can process information if the information itself is designed to keep you in a state of high-functioning agitation. If you look closely at the highest levels of industry, science, and art, you will see a strange new pattern emerging. These individuals are becoming invisible. They are deleting their digital exhaust. They are moving away from the constant, frantic exchange of the public square and into a deliberate, guarded silence. This is not about privacy in the way we usually think of it. It is about cognitive territory. They have realized that every time they engage with an algorithmically curated environment, they are handing over the keys to their limbic system. They are allowing their moods, their curiosities, and their very thoughts to be steered by an intelligence that does not have their best interests at heart. There is a quiet tension in this new way of living. It requires a level of discipline that feels almost monastic. To reclaim neural sovereignty is to admit that we are far more fragile than we like to believe. It is an acknowledgement that our biology can be hacked, not just by us, but by anyone with enough data and a sufficiently powerful server. The hyper-performers are beginning to treat their minds as high-security zones. They are building walls not to keep the world out, but to keep the integrity of their own thought processes in. They are choosing the slow, the analog, and the offline not because they are Luddites, but because they have realized that these are the only environments where original thought can still breathe. We used to think of the internet as a vast library, a place where we could go to find anything. Now, it feels more like a mirror that has been shattered into a billion pieces, each one designed to catch our eye and hold it for just a few seconds longer. The cost of this is a fragmentation of the self. When your attention is divided into 1,000 different directions, you lose the ability to go deep. You lose the ability to inhabit a thought until it yields something new. The people who are reclaiming their sovereignty understand that depth is the only true competitive advantage left in a world of surface-level noise. They are willing to trade the dopamine hits of the network for the profound, often difficult satisfaction of sustained concentration. But here is where the realization starts to become unsettling. As you begin to strip away the layers of digital influence, you find yourself wondering what is actually left. We have spent so much time being conditioned by the feedback loops of our devices that it becomes difficult to tell where the machine ends and the person begins. We think we have preferences, but many of them are just the result of a recommendation engine that has been nudging us for years. We think we have opinions, but often they are just echoes of the most viral sentiments in our social circles. When you truly step back into the silence of your own mind, you might find that it feels uncomfortably empty at first. You might realize that you have been outsourced to the cloud. This is the hidden price of the interface. We thought we were the ones being served, but in reality we were providing the infrastructure. Our neurons were being used to train the models that would eventually replace the need for our creativity. Every click, every scroll, and every moment of diverted attention was a data point used to map the human soul so it could be replicated and sold back to us in a more convenient package. The hyper-performers saw this coming. They realized that the ultimate luxury in the future will not be connectivity, but the ability to be completely disconnected and still function at a high level. They are practicing for a world where the most powerful person in the room is the one who cannot be reached. The shift is subtle, but it is accelerating. You see it in the way people are beginning to value physical presence over digital representation. You see it in the return to paper, to handwritten notes, to long-form reading, and to hours spent in unbroken contemplation. These are the tools of the new resistance. It is a quiet revolution happening in the boardrooms and the private laboratories, away from the cameras and the feeds. It is the realization that the mind is a finite resource, and that we have been spending it like it was infinite. To take it back is to accept a certain kind of isolation, but it is an isolation that is fertile rather than lonely. We are returning to a grounded sense of what it means to be a conscious being. We are learning to listen to the body again, to trust the intuition that hasn't been scrubbed by a dataset. There is a strange peace in this. It feels like waking up from a long, feverish dream into the cool air of a gray morning. The world is still there, with all its problems and complexities, but you are no longer being pulled through it by an invisible tether. You are standing on your own feet, looking at the horizon with eyes that are finally your own. You realize that the most important technology you will ever own is the 3 pounds of biological matter between your ears, and it is time you stopped letting strangers run experiments on it. The silence isn't empty. It is where the real work happens. It is where the breakthroughs live, and where the self is rebuilt from the ground up. The question of neural sovereignty isn't about the tools we use, but about who is in charge of the intent behind them. As we move further into this era of total integration, the line between the human and the artificial will continue to blur for most people. But for those who value the sanctity of their own consciousness, that line will become a fortress. They will choose to live in the gaps, in the spaces where the network cannot reach, guarding the flicker of their own original light. You can feel the weight of your own attention right now. You can feel where it wants to go, and the quiet pressure of all the things vying to take it from you. The air in the room is still. Your heart is beating at its own pace. For this moment, the screen is just a screen, and the thoughts in your head belong to no one but you. It is a rare and fragile thing, this clarity. It is the most valuable asset you possess, and yet it is the easiest thing to give away without even noticing it is gone. If you were to look inward and truly trace the origin of your next thought, how much of it would actually be yours?